All right, let's address the elephant in the room, or rather the elephant that used to be in the room but is now loudly trumpeting, on whatever social media platform hasn't banned him yet. We're talking about Donald J. Trump, a man whose presidency was about as subtle as a brick through a window and whose legacy remains somehow even more divisive than his spray tan. Now, calling someone the worst president ever is a bold claim, like saying Arby's is the best fast food or that Nickelback is high art. But in the case of Trump, it's a claim that's being made by a lot of people, and for a whole buffet of reasons. We're not here to tell you what to think, but we are going to lay out 7 of the most common arguments against his presidency. Because, well, that's what we do. Buckle up, folks, because we're about to dive headfirst into a dumpster fire of political controversy. And frankly, after the past few years, it's kind of comforting to know some things never change. Okay, let's start with the big one, the one that's impossible to ignore because it literally shut down the world for a while there. COVID-19. Remember those early days of the pandemic? The confusion, the fear, the constant hand-washing that left our hands drier than a popcorn fart? Yeah, good times. Now imagine navigating that whole mess with a president who seemed more concerned with downplaying the virus than actually fighting it. Trump's initial response to COVID was, to put it mildly, lackluster. He called it a hoax, suggested injecting disinfectant, please never do that, and promoted unproven treatments like hydroxychloroquine with the enthusiasm of a timeshare salesman. Meanwhile, the virus was busy, actually being a virus, spreading like wildfire and racking up a death toll that eventually surpassed any war in American history. Now, could any president have completely stopped COVID? Probably not, but experts agree that a more competent science-based approach could have saved countless lives. And that's the crux of the issue here. Trump's handling of the pandemic wasn't just bad, it was tragically, avoidably bad. It was like watching a toddler try to put out a house fire with a squirt gun, except the house was America, and the squirt gun was filled with bleach. All right, let's move on to something a little less existentially terrifying, shall we? Let's talk about impeachment, baby. Because apparently, once wasn't enough for Donald Trump. He's like the Godfather Part 2 of getting impeached. Except instead of a nuanced exploration of family and betrayal, it's just a bunch of yelling and conspiracy theories. First impeachment was all about Trump pressuring Ukraine to dig up dirt on his political rival, Joe Biden. Just your standard abuse of power, using the office of the presidency to try and rig an election. No biggie. The Republican-controlled Senate, in a move that surprised absolutely no one, acquitted him. But don't worry, Trump was just getting warmed up. He decided to celebrate his acquittal by inciting a violent insurrection at the Capitol on January 6, 2021. Because nothing says democracy like a mob of angry protesters storming the building where votes are being counted. And that, my friends, is how he earned his second impeachment. The House of Representatives, bless their hearts, voted to impeach him again, making him the first president in U.S. history to achieve this dubious honor twice. The Senate, in a shocking display of consistency, acquitted him again. So, the takeaway here is that Trump was impeached twice, which is impressive in its own terrible way. It's like getting kicked out of a buffet for eating too much. Twice. Let's talk about something that affects all of us. The ability to have a civil conversation without wanting to chuck our phones out the window. Remember that? Yeah, me neither. Trump has a knack for expressive communication. He's like that one uncle who gets way too into Facebook arguments. His rhetoric was like a hand grenade in American political discourse. He called Mexicans rapists, mocked a disabled reporter, and referred to African nations as shithole countries. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. His words, amplified by social media, turned neighbor against neighbor. The result? A country more divided than ever. While it's tempting to blame Trump entirely, he exploited divisions that already existed. He was like the guy who turns a pleasant barbecue into a screaming match. All right, let's zoom out a bit and talk about America's role on the world stage because, like it or not, what happens here affects the entire planet. And under Trump, let's just say America's global reputation went through a bit of a rebranding. See, Trump's approach to foreign policy was like his approach to Twitter. Impulsive, aggressive, and seemingly based on whatever thought popped into his head first. He cozied up to dictators, alienated allies, and pulled out of international agreements like he was trying to speed-run a game of diplomatic Jenga. He withdrew the United States from the Paris Climate Agreement, because who needs a healthy planet when you can have coal jobs, right? He slapped tariffs on China like he was playing a game of whack-a-mole, Except the moles were American businesses and consumers. And he treated NATO like a protection racket, constantly complaining about how much everyone else wasn't paying their fair share. The result? America's standing in the world took a nosedive. Allies were left confused and betrayed, adversaries emboldened, and the international order that the United States had spent decades building was left teetering on the brink. It was like watching a bull rampaging through a china shop, except the bull was wearing a MAGA hat and tweeting about how great it was at breaking stuff. Okay, let's talk about the environment now, because, that's the thing that keeps us all alive and breathing. And under Trump's watch, well, let's just say the planet wasn't exactly his top priority. In fact, it seemed like his environmental policy was basically to whisper "forget it" to a picture of Greta Thunberg every morning. He rolled back environmental regulations like they were outdated fashion trends, opening up protected lands to drilling and mining like he was trying to win a game of Destroy the Earth bingo. He appointed people who think climate change is a hoax to head environmental agencies, because who needs scientific expertise when you have, opinions? And he withdrew the United States from the Paris Climate Agreement because, well, we already covered that, but it's worth mentioning twice, just like his impeachments. The result? Air and water pollution increased, greenhouse gas emissions soared, and the planet continued its slow march towards a climate catastrophe. It was like watching someone try to put out a fire with gasoline, except the fire was climate change, and the gasoline was, well, pretty much everything Trump did. All right, let's talk about money, because let's face it, that's what makes the world go round. And under Trump, the world spun in a very specific direction, towards the already very full pockets of the wealthy. See, Trump campaigned on a promise to be the greatest jobs president that God ever created. And to be fair, the economy did grow during his presidency, but the question is, who actually benefited from that growth? Was it the working class, as Trump promised? Or was it, the people who were already doing pretty damn well for themselves? The answer, my friends, is about as surprising as finding a MAGA hat at a Trump rally. Trump's signature economic achievement, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017, slashed taxes for corporations and the wealthy, while offering meager crumbs to everyone else. It was like throwing a banquet for the top 1% and giving everyone else a coupon for a free bag of chips. The result? Economic inequality skyrocketed, the national debt ballooned, and the middle class continued to shrink faster than a cashmere sweater in a hot dryer. It was trickle-down economics on steroids, and just like every other time it's been tried, it didn't trickle down very far. Okay, folks, we've arrived at the final and arguably most disturbing chapter of the Trump presidency, his relentless assault on American democracy. Because it turns out, being president wasn't enough for Trump. He also wanted to be king, emperor, supreme ruler of the universe, just your average power-hungry despot stuff. From the moment he took office, Trump sowed distrust in American institutions, calling the media the enemy of the people, attacking the judiciary, and undermining faith in elections. He treated the presidency like a reality show, where facts were flexible, rules were made to be broken, and the only thing that mattered was his own ego. But things took a truly dark turn after the 2020 election, which, spoiler alert, he lost. Trump, unable to accept defeat with even a shred of grace, spent months spreading lies about voter fraud, filing frivolous lawsuits, and pressuring election officials to overturn the results. It was like watching a sore loser throw a temper tantrum, except the temper tantrum involved inciting a violent insurrection at the Capitol. And that, my friends, is where we leave off. With American democracy hanging by a thread, battered but not broken, and with a collective sense of relief that the Trump show is finally, mercifully, over. The question is, what lasting damage has been done? And can American democracy ever truly recover from the Trump era? Only time will tell. So there you have it. 7 reasons why many believe Donald Trump was the worst president in United States history. From his chaotic handling of the COVID-19 pandemic to his divisive rhetoric and attacks on democracy, Trump's presidency was a wild, unpredictable, and often terrifying ride. Now, it's important to note that not everyone agrees with this assessment. Trump still has his supporters, many of whom believe he was a strong, effective leader who fought for the little guy. And it's entirely possible that history will judge him more kindly than his critics do today. But one thing is for sure, Trump's presidency left an indelible mark on America, one that will continue to be debated, analyzed, and argued about for years to come. These are just a few of the reasons why many believe Donald Trump was the worst president in United States history. What do you think? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content.